So today we're going to be looking at a Stihl 041AV farm chainsaw. This is a really nice vintage chainsaw, a little bit older, but they are still plenty powerful and you can usually get them working pretty good. First thing, I'm just going to make sure that the fuel that is in it is mixed fuel, because this is not my chainsaw. This one came in to be repaired, and I want to make sure that however many owners it's had first knew that they needed to mix the fuel. And the fuel is mixed, so we shouldn't have any problems there. And of course, always want to check to make sure the chainsaw is actually broken. Give it a couple pulls, and there's no response. It doesn't sputter, doesn't want to move. And we can see right in there, can't see it too well on the camera, but there's some fuel evident. So that means we got a fuel leak. So, just gonna pop the whole thing off. And there are two small screws on the front flathead screws. And there we go. After that, all that's left is the trigger connection. See the little bar right there going into the handle. All you have to do for that is a little wire, and it's crimped on the end, and it just goes right into the trigger. Just got to pop that out, and the whole thing folds over quite nicely. So this is the leaky fuel line. You can't see it on the video, but there is quite a pronounced split in it. So pop that guy off, and I'm going to use a very handy tool, which is rounded needle nose pliers. It's not going to crimp or grab at the hose. And it can slide it off pretty easy without damaging any of the components. Right, now for some new line. This isn't just regular line, this is fuel line, so it has been made for gas or gas and oil mixtures. It's not going to fall apart or decay when exposed to fuel like many other rubber lines will. Just make sure you get a gas line when replacing these. Make sure to cut it to the right length, and ensure that the diameter, of course, is the same. Inside diameter is the major thing you got to watch out for, because if you get too much or too little fuel, it can cause some weird problems. Get that started by hand, but it's got too tight, so use the round needle nose pliers. And just pop that in there. Doesn't damage the tube or any of the connections. And just make sure that the unit switch, which is right next to the trigger on the left hand side, is off. That way there'll be no electricity going to the spark plug. Give it a couple of pulls, and you can see the fuel travel up the line. I'm just going to take a little bit of the fuel out of the chainsaw, because I don't have any mixed on hand right now, and put it into a clean container. Just drop a little bit into the carburetor. Just a couple of drops should do it. Close the choke. Make sure everything is away from the blade just in case the blade starts to turn. Give it a couple of pulls. And she starts. Open the choke. Start her right up. Throttle. And she runs pretty smooth, so that's good. So just from listening how she runs, and there's no major hiccups, just sounds like a normal operating two-stroke. That means that there's nothing wrong with the carburetor, and all the fuel lines, all the other fuel lines should be good. So now all you have to do is close her back up. So this job was just to get the chainsaw running, but I'm going to go a little bit further than that, because you'll see in the next little bit the chain on the bar is seized pretty good. Now, there was a cover on it, but it was just a short cover, so part of the chain that was exposed became quite rusted, which is unfortunate. Get the bar off. It's pretty simple. It's 2 nuts on the side. It's a 13mm. And it looks like they haven't been undone for a long time, so they are pretty stiff. And I'll need a short socket to get in there. Once you got them a little bit unscrewed, they do come out by hand. And the cover just slips right off there. And as you can see, this chainsaw has been used for, well, its purpose, cutting wood. There's a lot of sawdust and other random bits of material in there, and you can see the chain there is wedged or lodged firmly into the track from corrosion, rust, from it being left to sit. So we're not going to be able to get that bar out of there until the chain is out. So I'm going to very gently pry the chain out. It's not so much crowbarring it as getting the flathead just between the chain and the bar and just turning it slightly just to break that corrosion, and then pull it straight out by hand. That way we don't damage the bar. And there she comes. And of course the chain being corroded doesn't want to bend around the flywheel and come out. As soon as you see corrosion on the chain's going to pretty much be a write-off. You could soak it, get rid of the corrosion, oil it all up, get it all nice and moving again, but once something's been corroded, there's not the same amount of steel there, and it's not the same shape as before, even if you remove the rust. So I wouldn't put it past it to suddenly you're going through a nice big log jam and get stuck after it's heated up, and that could damage the bar or the internals of the unit, the flywheel, the clutch. So instead of ruining a $600 saw, you might as well just buy a new chain just to be sure. I don't know exactly how much these things were worth new, but just going by what they sell for in my local area. Now, just going to get a lot of this gunk out of there. It's mostly a mixture of oil, wood chips, and sawdust, and some grass and things like that. And it's not scraping off the paint, just going in there and getting it to move, and then pulling it off. And as we move the rounded needle nose pliers through the track, you can see that it sticks right there. So there is corrosion in the track where the chain was sitting in it. Now, this could be rectified by running a very thin file through it with some cutting fluid, or maybe some sandpaper wrapped around a small piece of metal, but that's not part of my job for this unit. That'll be up to the customer whether he wants to buy a new bar or see if this one can be refurbished. And as you can see, the chain is very, very corroded, sticking, and that part's unfortunately a write-off. So in the end, we have our good, our bad, and a big old pile of ugly. And all of that just came out of the housing where the flywheel was, pretty much. Yuck. Well, that's all for now. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.